You've never been to Norway in 1893. You've never walked the road at Ekeberg Hill on a January evening. You've probably never had a panic attack while watching the sky turn blood red over a fjord. And yet, if I show you this image, you know exactly how it feels. That face, those hollow eyes, that mouth, a perfect oval of open, silent horror. Those hands pressed flat against the skull. You've felt this. That's the uncanny magic of Edvard Munch's The Scream. It is not just a painting. It is not just a famous face on a mug in a museum gift shop. It is not just an emoji on your phone. It is one of the most accurate visual representations of a feeling that every human being has experienced and almost no one can fully explain. The feeling that the world around you is vibrating at a frequency you can't handle. That existence itself is asking too much of you. That something enormous and nameless has just passed through the air and you're the only one who heard it. So let's talk about the scream. What it is, where it came from, and why, 130 years later, it is more relevant than ever. To understand the painting, we have to understand the painter. Because Edvard Munch did not invent existential dread, he collected it. His entire life was a masterclass in accumulating it. He was born on the 12th of December, 1863, in Loten, Norway, a country that was itself in a kind of identity crisis. Norway was still locked in a political union with Sweden. It hadn't fully industrialized. It was losing hundreds of thousands of citizens to mass emigration, mostly to America. The economy had been stagnating since the mid-1870s. GDP barely moved. Prices fell year after year. In the 1880s alone, nearly 250,000 Norwegians left nearly 60% of the country's entire birth surplus. Only Ireland bled people faster. Into this uncertain world, Munch was born, and then grief got to work. His mother died of tuberculosis when he was 5 years old. His older sister Sophie, his closest companion, died from the same disease when he was 13. Another sister, Laura, was committed to a psychiatric institution for life with severe mental illness, and his brother Andreas dropped dead of pneumonia just months after his own wedding. By the time Munch was a young adult, he had witnessed the entire spectrum of human suffering without ever leaving his own family. He later wrote, "Illness, madness, and death were the black angels that guarded my cradle and have followed me throughout my life." Here was a man for whom anxiety wasn't a mood, it was a native language. And he channeled every syllable of it into paint. Now zoom out. Because Munch didn't paint The Scream in a vacuum, he painted it during one of the most psychologically turbulent decades in Western history. Welcome to the 1890s, the fin de siècle, the end of the century. Europe was mid-transformation. Industrialization was uprooting millions from agricultural lives and cramming them into cities. Telegraph wires were stitching the world together for the first time. Darwin had announced that humans were not the children of God, but the cousins of apes. Friedrich Nietzsche had declared not as an insult, but as a diagnosis that God is dead. Sigmund Freud was, at that very moment in Vienna, developing the idea that your conscious mind is not even the captain of your own ship. Think about how disorienting this was. For centuries, Europeans had lived inside a story, a reassuring one, that the universe had a moral structure, that suffering had meaning, that death led somewhere. And in the span of a single lifetime, science and philosophy had quietly dismantled the scaffolding of that story, plank by plank. The result? A continent-wide existential hangover. Artists didn't know what to paint. Writers didn't know what to write. The symbolists tried to retreat into myth and dream. The naturalists tried to document raw, ugly reality. And a few extraordinary people like Munch tried to do something no one had done before: paint a feeling. Not a scene, not a figure, not a landscape, a feeling. Munch called this his ambition. He said he wanted to express the most subtle states of mind. He was tired of painting men and women sitting in rooms. He wanted to paint the invisible, the terror, the longing, the grief that floats in the air between people. He called his life's work The Frieze of Life, a series of interconnected paintings about love, anxiety, and death. The scream was its centerpiece, its beating, terrified heart. Now for the moment itself, because unlike most famous artworks, we know almost exactly when and where the inspiration struck, because Munch wrote it down. In his diary, in January 1892, walking near Ekeberg Hill outside Oslo with two friends, he recorded this. "I was walking along the road with two friends, then the sun went down. Suddenly, the sky turned blood red and I felt a breath of melancholy, an exhausting pain under my heart. I paused, leaning against the fence, tired to death above the blue-black fjord and city there was blood and tongues of fire. My friends went on and I stood there trembling with anxiety, and I felt that a great and infinite scream went through nature." Read that again, because people have been misreading this painting for over a century. The figure in the scream is not screaming. Nature is screaming, and the figure is hearing it. That's why the hands are pressed against the ears. That's why the mouth is open, not in a shout, but in a gasp of overwhelm. Munch was a man of unusual perceptual sensitivity. He described moments of near dissolution where the boundary between himself and the world around him became terrifyingly thin. As art historian Reinhold Heller put it, Munch experienced what psychologists later identified as the fear of the loss of self-integrity, the fear of being incorporated into the environment. The figure in the painting isn't just scared, it's dissolving. Look at how the lines of the swirling sky mirror the curving lines of the body. The landscape and the person are made of the same brushstrokes. The boundary between self and world is collapsing. This is what a panic attack feels like from the inside. But there's another layer, one that sounds almost too dramatic to be real. In August 1883, 10 years before Munch's walk on that hill, the Indonesian volcano Krakatoa exploded in the most powerful volcanic eruption in recorded history. It was so loud it was heard 4,800 kilometers away, nearly as far as from London to New York. The eruption sent millions of tons of volcanic ash into the atmosphere, which drifted westward, scattering across Europe. For months afterward, sunsets across Scandinavia were unnaturally vivid, streaked with blood red and deep orange, the light scattered through a sky full of ash. Scientists studying Munch's diaries and the meteorological records of 1880s Oslo have concluded that this is almost certainly the blood-red sky he saw that evening. The sky wasn't metaphorical, it was literally chemically altered. A volcano erupted in Indonesia, and the aftershock wrote itself across the sky above Norway and into the consciousness of a hypersensitive young painter who couldn't look away. Let's look at the canvas more carefully, because every element is working. The composition is split into two worlds in collision. There is the rigid, straight wooden boardwalk, the path of reason, structure, social life stretching diagonally into the distance, where two of Munch's friends walk on, utterly indifferent. They represent us, most of the time, heads down, following the path, not looking left or right. And then there is the swirling, flame-like liquid sky, all motion, all feeling, all chaos. Everything that doesn't fit into rational daily life. The figure stands at the intersection. It has stepped off the safe diagonal of the road and is pressed against the railing, caught between the two worlds, the ordinary and the overwhelming. That face, so iconic it has its own emoji, was likely inspired by a mummified corpse Munch saw at the Trocadero Ethnographic Museum in Paris in 1889, the shrunken, leathery head of a Peruvian Chachapoya mummy. Art historian Robert Rosenblum noticed the striking resemblance, the sunken cheeks, the elongated oval of the skull, the hollow eyes. Munch may have seen death's face and put it on a living man's body. A living man who has just felt something too large to survive. And then there's the inscription.
For decades, art historians puzzled over a small piece of Norwegian text penciled in the upper left corner of the Oslo version. Kan kun være male af en gal mand. Can only have been painted by a madman. For years, scholars assumed it was vandalism. Then, in 2021, infrared analysis confirmed what some had long suspected. It was written by Munch himself. He had heard the critics calling him insane, and he replied right on the painting, quietly, in pencil with a kind of defiant irony. Yes, only a madman? That's the point. This is a man who had internalized the century's verdict on sensitivity, on anxiety, on feeling too much, and had turned it into art. Philosophically, the painting also reflects Munch's engagement with monism, the philosophy that there is no hard separation between the self and the world, between mind and matter. Championed in the 1880s by biologist Ernst Haeckel, who linked it to Darwinian evolution, monism argued that all living things are continuous with each other and with their environment. For Munch, this wasn't a comforting idea. It was terrifying. If you are not truly separate from the world around you, then when the world screams, so do you. The painting was first shown publicly in 1895. The response was split. Some saw genius. A medical student famously questioned Munch's sanity, and Munch, we now know, heard him. The inscription on the painting proved it. Despite or because of the controversy, the image spread fast. A lithograph version was reproduced in the French journal La Revue Blanche in 1895 and in American publications a year later. By 1908, it was being used on the cover of a book about psychological disorders and art. The image was already escaping the canvas. Then came the thefts. On the 12th of February, 1994, the opening day of the Winter Olympics in Lillehammer, two men used a ladder to break into the National Gallery of Oslo, lifted the scream off the wall, and left behind a note, "Thanks for the poor security." It was recovered 3 months later. In 2004, armed men walked into the Munch Museum in broad daylight and carried off another version at gunpoint. That one was gone for 2 years. Both robberies made global headlines. And something interesting happened. Each theft made the image more famous, more mythologized. The Scream was already the world's most recognizable painting. The robberies made it the world's most wanted painting. Then came the auction. In May 2012, one pastel version of The Scream sold at Sotheby's, New York for $119.9 million, the highest price ever paid for an artwork at auction at that time. The face had become currency. And then the emoji, the meme, the Halloween mask, the scary movie franchise, the endless parodies. Andy Warhol's silkscreen remixes, the political cartoons. Every election crisis, every global disaster, every embarrassing Monday morning, someone pulls out the Scream to say, yes, this. Exactly this. This is what the Munch Museum's curators call the painting's double life. It exists simultaneously as a fragile, fading pastel on cardboard that can barely be displayed without risking permanent damage, and as one of the most reproduced images in human history, living on billions of phone screens. So here's the question that haunts this painting: why? Why does a face painted in 1893 by a traumatized Norwegian man on Ekeberg Hill still stop us cold in 2026? The easy answer is that it's instantly recognizable. But that's circular reasoning. We recognize it because it speaks to something real. Every generation of modernity has its own version of Munch's walk on the hill. Its own moment of looking up at the sky and feeling the scale of existence pressed down unbearably. The Victorians had Darwin and Nietzsche pulling God out from under them. The 20th century had 2 world wars, the Holocaust, the atomic bomb. The 21st century has climate anxiety, algorithmic alienation, and the peculiar modern horror of being hyper-connected to everyone while feeling profoundly alone. The scream that went through nature in 1892 never stopped. It just keeps finding new people to hear it.
What Munch did brilliantly, accidentally, completely, was give that formless dread a face. He translated the untranslatable. He said, "Here. This is what the inside of an anxiety attack looks like. This is what it feels like when the world is too loud and your friends keep walking and you are standing at the railing trembling, wondering if you are the only one who can hear it. You are not." That's the secret inside the scream. It was painted by one man's suffering, but it belongs to every person who has ever stood at the edge of the ordinary and felt the infinite press in. Munch survived. He lived to 80. He kept painting. He kept writing. He made peace mostly with the black angels that had guarded his cradle. And he left us this, a painting that screams for those who can't. A face that says, "Yes, the world is overwhelming. Yes, you are terrifyingly permeable. Yes, the sky sometimes turns blood red for reasons you can't explain. You are not mad. You are just paying attention."